Well, let's call this meeting to order. This is the Stormwater Working Group. I can't see the agenda very well. Let's see. There we go. Sorry, I'm having to use my phone, not my computer. Okay, so like I said, call to order and introduction.
Sometimes we will have the chair read off the names of the people in attendance, but in this case, I don't know if it's as easy on your phone. Would you like me to do that, or Melanie?
Oh, they're there. Okay, no, it just took me a minute to find them.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Paula Bloomer. I am with the town of Marana. And then we have Marie Light.
Hello.
Hello, there we go. How about just a hello? Scott Bennett.
Hello.
Dave Mack.
Hey there.
Elizabeth Liebold. Then we have Mead.
Hello.
Now, Mead, are you going by Mead Meyer Wellborn?
Yes, I am now.
Excellent. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And we have Melanie Alvarez.
Hello.
And let's see. Oh, Lonnie Frost
Hello.
and Howard Myers.
Present.
All right. Well, that looks like everyone. Okay. There we go. Melanie, do you want to explain the in-kind form?
Sure. So regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for uses matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you're not paid with federal dollars, please let us know. You can send an email to Mead or to myself. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG and RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. So please let us know if you spent any additional time preparing for this meeting. And we will make sure that that's reported. Thank you.
Okay, I think Mead and Melanie, you guys were going to talk about regulatory changes.
Yeah, I'll get started. So we invited Mark Murphy to come and help lead this discussion, but he had a last minute appointment pop up where he had to miss, and he sends his regrets. But I thought I would just share a few of the notices that have come out from ADQ over the last several months and have you all chime in about how you're responding with stormwater management. So first off, hopefully you all saw the ADQ stakeholder meeting that's occurring on Monday. Let me double check. The 16th, and that's to go over the significant nexus technical paper. That's where they're determining the extent of federal jurisdictions so that the state water program can regulate the rest. And then up next after that, they have the Economic Society and Environment model coming out for review with a stakeholder meeting on May 23rd. And then after that, the dates have not been announced, but the next steps for the State Waters Program is developing BMPs and sending out a draft rule estimated in July. Before I go on to the others, is anybody planning on attending those or have any thoughts you'd like to share for coordination with the group?
This is, go ahead, Marie.
I plan to attend the meeting on Monday.
Good.
I do as well.
Okay. Well, you've probably all been following as well. I wanted to just kind of sum up what a year this has been in tracking regulations. In the past, ADQ, some of these may be related to other parts of your work as well, since I know each of you has a varied environmental job. They sent out the Clean Water Act assessment that went up this April, up to the EPA. That was the 2022 assessment. And we were tracking that for the stormwater quality data that was sent up on the outstanding Arizona water for Davidson Canyon, which was finding copper in the stormwater. They've already requested water quality data for 2024, and I'm sure you all are familiar with entering it to the EPA's Water Quality Exchange. There's a water quality standards paper they asked for feedback on. And then way back in July, going that far back, there was the general permits update. Some of those phase 2 MS4s probably can speak to that. We'll have more parts of the agenda to talk about permit changes. But in addition, in February, the EPA, it was the proposed rulemaking for waters of the US came out and comments were due in February. That was related to halting the navigable waters protection rule last year. So we're basically following the pre-2015 guidance now, the Rapanos guidance, and so far the thing that's coming up is the regional roundtables, and the one for the Southwest is on June 2nd. So that's the other upcoming announcement. Would anyone like to add to that who might be involved in some of the details? Yeah, go ahead.
Since I don't have my computer on, I can't pull up the documents, but I was under the impression that the stay of the halting of the 2020 rulemaking under the Trump administration, that the EPA and the Corps are working to redefine. And so we were back to the pre-2015. But then I thought that just recently that the judge in Arizona, I guess district judge, that put a stay or a halt to it, that it had been found that he didn't have the jurisdiction, the right to halt that. So now we're back to the 2020.
I thought I'd heard that too, but I couldn't find it on the EPA website. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, I can't fish for it right now, but
so there's a
yes, I think so. Right, but I've been a little afraid to call the Army Corps to see, where we're at now, but I'm going to have to because we have some town projects that I need clarification if we have 404 or not now. So,
yeah,
but I think I may just, for town projects, I think I may just go ahead and tell them to treat it like we are back in the pre-2015, better safe than sorry.
Precaution.
Mhm.
Scott might have something to add to this. His hand is up.
Well, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that either, but Arizona, the ADQ has also got the Arizona protected surface waters that they're working on. So basically we're operating as if it's 2016 or 2015, you know, pre-Trump administration. Because I think that's ultimately where we're going to end up.
It's protected under one or the other.
Yeah.
Marie?
Yeah, we're doing the exact same thing that Scott and Paula are doing. It's been a very complex time figuring out where our permit applies and where the waters are protected. And so we're essentially going back to the pre-2015. And if it's less restrictive, we can respond to that, but it's easier to overdo a protective action than it is to not have done something.
Do any
That
of you
makes
guys
sense.
have to deal with how that, are you consulting with SHPO on cultural resources? Do any of you guys overlap with that part of the process?
Not for Pima County.
Okay.
Is that something you're handling, Paula? Paula, is that, do you ask because that's something you've been impacted by?
Yeah, because I deal with the cultural resources for town projects as well. When it's under core jurisdiction, it automatically goes to SHPO for review. But if it's not under core jurisdiction, SHPO doesn't want to look at it. So the middle ground that I think we're going to have to take is treat the washes like they're jurisdictional, treat the cultural resources, you know, review them, and then just be aware that if the court does take jurisdiction on it, they'll have to go to SHPO.
That sounds wise. Well, we just wanted to give a little chance for everybody to share how they're handling it, and it sounds like many of you are handling it fairly similarly. Would anyone else like to share resources? Marie.
Mead, real quick, you are cutting out just a little bit with your camera.
Oh, let me turn that off. It might work better.
Okay, thank you.
Because there's been so many changes with where the protected waters are, what we've been doing is each month taking a snapshot of ADEQ's EMAPs that shows the protected surface waters. And they were changing a lot up until either January or February this year. And so it stopped changing, which has made it a lot easier for us to figure out where ADQ thinks things should be protected. Yeah, the other issue that came up so I do want to say that is the tool that we're using for identifying what are protected waters, and my evaluation shows that what they have showing on the map is the same thing as Appendix B in the Arizona Administrative Code that lists the waters with designated uses. So that's been a very, very helpful tool to us.
Now, Marie, when you say that you're taking a snapshot, are you guys able to like put it in your GIS system, or are you physically doing like screenshots?
I do a screenshot and then I save it in a PowerPoint. So it's intentionally a static image.
Okay, cool.
Good tips. All right, I think we can probably move on, and we've got more topics that might relate if people have more thoughts come up later. Paula, feel free to move us forward. Is it my
Oh, sorry.
connection, or is
Nope. Nope, it's me.
okay?
You'd think by now we would all know to unmute.
Oh, good.
Okay, so we have construction best management practices resource update.
So I'll get us started with this too. We're going to share some of our updated construction industry resource guide, which was linked in your agenda. So you can follow along with it there, but I believe Melanie is going to show it on the screen. But right before that, I just was going to give a little intro that this developed well over 15 years ago, when we first started hosting regional stormwater construction seminars. And many of you were involved over the years in that. Our goal was to make sure it represented tools that you use or that you send to the construction industry, or that you as people who work in the industry find most useful, especially as times change and more resources become available, or just regulations change, or local ordinances need change. So some of these things Melanie will go through in detail. With those past workshops, we found that just over half, about 60% of the attendees tended to be from the jurisdictions themselves. So these guides as well might be useful to not only those who are regulated in the private sector, but in the public sector too. So just keeping that in mind, we haven't held a seminar in several years. We shifted over to helping get the statewide MS4 seminars going for a while, and then we shifted over to helping to host a few green infrastructure workshops as that was kicking off. So we just kind of get a pulse on where we can help you all today. So Melanie, would you like to share the guide and highlight some of the features? This is available still on our website. And you are muted, just in case you didn't.
Yep. All right. So can you see it okay? I can zoom in some more too if people need it. But as Mita introduced, this is our Stormwater Program Construction Industry Resources Guide. And this takes the place of our old web page. We used to have a page that had lots of links to those past presentations and different resources. And our site has since been redesigned, and we felt that it was easier to keep a guide like this up to date than having a standalone web page. So just give a quick scroll through so you can take a look if you haven't already seen it. So this update involved compiling all of these useful resource links and updating them for permits and regulatory guidance. We have a lot of information here about the different permitting programs that could impact different agencies within our region. So with NIPDs, AZIPDs, SWIPs, other state and federal programs. We have links to all the MS4 program pages and to our map that we try to keep up to date. And let's see, local codes. We have a section on inspections and enforcement. This is mostly focused on resources that would be useful to the construction industry rather than to stormwater inspectors themselves. But of course, this document can be updated as we go. So if you see anything that, or if you know of anything that you would like to be featured here, or anything that would be useful for you, feel free to let us know. We have additional guides and resources for different BMPs. Let's see. We have a section on green infrastructure and LID, rainwater harvesting and zero escape. And then these are the trainings that Mead was mentioning from our past seminars, and a few others that from other agencies. And again, if you're familiar with any others that we might have missed, we can include those in a future update. And I believe that's pretty much it for this guide. So if you can think of any additional resources that you would like us to feature, or any other strategies, topics that you'd like us to cover, please let us know.
Marie has her hand.
Yeah, Melanie, how would you like us to give you that information? Do we do it in the meeting now, or would you like us to send you an email?
We're able to discuss it now. If you have any links that you'd like to share, anything that you'd like us to include in the guide, feel free to send those to us via email. But we have time to discuss if anybody would like to share ideas.
There is one issue that I wanted to talk about, and that has to do with a GIS map of where the jurisdictional boundaries are. And one of the things that I'm working on now with flood control is to get a map that is updated on a monthly basis that reflects the annexations that are taking place. I noticed that there's a really nice map that was created in 2019. And since then, there have been at least 5 annexations that have changed the shape of that boundary. And so what I wanted to discuss with the group here is if the county can create that map and essentially keep track of those inner boundaries, particularly that this is going to impact the city of Tucson and Marana and Oro Valley. Probably not so much for the other MS4s like ADOT or the university or Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. But I'd be curious to get feedback on if people would find that useful.
So Marie, are you offering to kind of take over these updates and make them monthly?
Yes.
Instead of our annual updates?
Yes, we are
Work with
intentional.
every jurisdiction to get the updates?
We already have a method of keeping track of the annexations, and they are happening about every 6 months now. But as the economy is increasing, I'm expecting that there's going to be more annexations. So our goal is to write a script that does a check, and then if there are updates that are needed, that we do it once a month. And one of the other benefits of being able to do that, yeah, so we would be doing that for all the jurisdictions. Sorry, Lonnie, I don't think the county lines are going to change, but
Well, yeah, your automated process and the counties was always you were always extremely responsive, but always the kind of the trickiest boundary because of the it not being just the whole county, but the donut shape that the MS4 boundary was.
Yes, yes.
And what we've done in the past is for a lot of data that's either PAGs or the counties or other jurisdictions, behind the scenes, we share the same data servers, so we can live project that onto our site too for anyone who's used to going to our site.
Yes, yes, that's great. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that because our area is so large, we've got over 7,000 square miles within the county, and we've had to remove areas that are not under our jurisdiction. So we remove the Indian lands as well as public lands like forests, national forests or monuments.
Yeah.
And so any of those lands that are not going to be developed, then that's not part of our MS4, which enables us to focus on where the urbanized areas are.
Perfect. It's been many years since I did the update, but that's familiar.
Yeah, I'm curious how many of the other of the participants actually use Pima County's map guide, or a Pima map, sorry.
And Paula has her hand up too.
Well, I just wanted to say that, first of all, yes, please add any of Miranda's information on there, because I know that we share a lot of boundaries. So I think that would be wonderful to have all in one place. And I use Pima maps as well as our own town GIS system, but I do, and I think that the information on there is very good.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Does anyone else use Pima maps?
Yes, Marie, I do. I use
Okay.
Pima Map Survey. I use all the Pima County GIS.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Okay, thanks for the feedback, guys.
Great, and maybe everyone may want to consider speaking to your GIS departments to see if you use your own versions of map guide instead, about sharing that data behind the scenes if you don't already. If not, our GIS administrator, Josh Pope, is pretty well connected with everyone too and can help make some of that happen.
My question would be, what kind of layers are you guys looking for?
Oh, this one we're talking about is that just their MS4 boundaries.
So has everybody clearly delineated their MS4 boundaries? Because we just kind of use our town limits. I know it is the urbanized area, but
They are, from our perspective, they are one and the same thing.
yeah. So, I mean, we have a town limit shapefile if people would like access to it. It's updated pretty consistently.
Yeah, I think because we keep track of the annexations, so that's unincorporated Pima County now being transferred to an incorporated area. So we're in a good position to keep track of all of that. The only thing that would I don't know about is if there's a boundary between cities. Do you have changes to that?
You meaning where we transition from Oro Valley to unincorporated county back to Marana?
No, the boundary between Marana and Oro Valley. Does
Yeah,
that
that's
boundary
what I had.
change?
I mean, we haven't annexed anything on that side recently, so it's largely the same as far as I know. I don't know about Marana's annexations.
Okay,
Typically, Marie, we take annexations from unincorporated Pima County, not from another like Oro Valley.
Oh yeah, I know that. I just mean, I'm talking on the western boundary of Oro Valley. We haven't seen any annexation there recently. And so that boundary between Marana and Oro Valley has largely stayed the same for the last few years.
Yeah.
it makes sense. That sounds good.
And Elizabeth wanted to add something. You're muted.
Hi.
Hi.
I just had a comment to make. So when we're looking at the stormwater boundaries, there's obvious locations where we have outfalls that might enter other MS4s. And typically for the city of Tucson, that's along our western boundary. So one thing to look at is watersheds themselves that overlap the different jurisdictions that might help us identify those locations near the jurisdictional boundaries where that impact between the two MS4s occurs.
How do you
You can see-
handle that when it does discharge maybe into two MS4s at once?
So one of our projects that's been identified for our new MS4 permit is going to try to address that. ADOT and the city of Tucson, and we're also thinking about asking South Tucson to look at that ADOT boundary, that area, and we're going to see how we can increase or set up a better procedure or understand what procedures are out there for communicating during an IDDE. So, but the other thing is we have regulations that talk about when we have a parcel that's being developed within a certain distance of a boundary of the city limits. Our code requires us to share the project submittal with the adjacent property. Typically it's the county in this case, where we have some of the boundary area outside of our city limit there, and we will share those projects. And I can think of one example where we met with the county to discuss how the stormwater runoff was impacting the city and county for this project. So the code is there for that type of thing for development. There is that requirement to share those review submittals. And then also, like I said, for ADOT and the city, I believe our fire department might already have an IGA to go out to address certain incidents that may occur in the ADOT right away. But we're looking into that to see how that impacts ADOT versus the city of Tucson and maybe even South Tucson.
Okay. Marie, you were responding to that?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really important topic that Elizabeth brought up about where we have points of interface between the MS4s. And currently, we don't have a plan for identifying those points. But I think if there was an illicit discharge, that would be something that would be important for being able to quickly communicate. Now, a lot of what I do is identify where it is on the map and then call the MS4. So, I mean, we have an informal process. Like it's not written up as a standard operating procedure, but that's what I've done. So doesn't seem.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if there was more clarity about that.
Is that something that this mapping effort can help with, or maybe further analysis would help with?
I'm curious what David has to say.
All your maps show I-10, but none of your maps say that I-10 is its own MS4. Plus, all my property in this valley is all my MS4. So
Oh, that.
when I look around, I see City of Tucson, Pima County, this jurisdiction, that jurisdiction. Nobody gives me any love in those maps.
Oh no, that must have fallen off our last update. That ADOT used to be on there.
You know, I mean,
How to change this?
Mind you, that my MS4 is pencil width compared to everything.
Yeah.
But you know, we basically cut the eastern half of the city off to the Santa Cruz, so everything goes through us. And I don't know what the regulations are for like Oracle and Miracle Mile. I don't know what the IGA say for that, and who has what rights and jurisdictions on those things. I don't know yet. I just know that with I-10 and I-19, any which way we can further enhance our communication for something coming from one side or going to the next, or something originating from my site going to the next, and communicating that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So this is a really good point, and I know that Eileen Dunn was working on something like this some years back. And would she be a good contact person to link up with to see if we can get some of those shape files?
No, because we don't have those shape files.
You don't?
And I rely on you guys. I mean, I've some of the best stuff I've seen is from the city of Tucson. I actually know where my pipes are. Pretty sad, huh? We're working on our GIS right now, but it is so far behind and so slow. And I'm working an uphill battle against my own IT people. So I have to rely on everything else. I have limited information on a lot of things in anywhere in the state. So it's not just down here, it's anywhere in the state.
So one of the questions that Eileen asked was, where is ADOT in your area? And I had no clue. And it isn't just I-10 and I-19. I think there's some state routes, but yeah. I don't know where they begin and start. So it might be helpful. Do you have a map of those things?
Well, we have a map of every route that we have some sort of right to. But for instance, so this is kind of this what let me just back up a little bit. This is what Elizabeth and I are working on. Okay, so we're trying to do that. So don't worry about Eileen. Just work with me down here.
Okay.
We as a team, all of us, we'll get through it.
Okay.
Right. Just, we don't need to bother her. The second thing is like, okay, for instance, Elizabeth was saying that on Oracle Road through the city of Tucson. So starts at I-10, goes Miracle Mile, then it goes Oracle Road all the way up into Oro Valley and beyond. She was saying that ADOT has surface street responsibility and surface rights. So hence why we are rebuilding Oracle right now, putting in a new curb and sidewalk and putting in beautiful brand new pavement because it needed it really bad. But the storm drain system supposedly is the jurisdiction of City of Tucson, which helps me out tremendously because I don't need to worry about it anymore. I can take those points off my IDDE reporting because they're now City of Tucson responsibility. However, I have never seen an IGA. I don't know what the IGA looks like, but I know that every jurisdiction that we run through probably has an IGA. I'm still trying to find out where they keep the IGAs in ADOT.
So one of the things that we have on PEMA maps is the drainage way maintenance, and each reach has it's Pima County or through an IGA, somebody is keeping track of that. I do not know, maybe Elizabeth, you know, what kind of arrangements are made within the City of Tucson jurisdiction.
Yeah, there was an old IGA that was prepared between ADOT and the City of Tucson. And a couple years ago, one of the ADOT folks had told me that they were working on an update to that. So I'm not 100% sure what it says with regard to drainage maintenance, but I know that in the older one or the current one, I'm not sure which is current right now, but the older one said that, like David was saying, the road structure itself is the responsibility of ADOT to do maintenance, and you, like you said, Oracle Road is being worked on, but the drainage infrastructure that goes through and under are the City of Tucson's maintenance responsibility. And like I said, I'm not sure what the newest IGA says about it, so we'd have to double check that information. But but with regards to when we have fires or certain types of, a car crash and there's a fire or a spill from a diesel truck or something, those types of things, it's important for stormwater management to know about. In some cases, we might go out there to assist in a very peripheral way. This fire staff is used to us being on the periphery, and if they turn to look at us, then we'll say, hey, we got a catch basin over here, please put up some controls, you may have missed this one. But so there's a little bit of work that we kind of work with the stormwater works with fire, but we need to understand, this, we have to get the spill report. We'd like to know how much, has been spilled, if any's entered our storm drain system, and that kind of information for not just, our annual report, but to know what we need to do if we need to clean something up further. And so we might have to hire, environmental hazard group to go out to do additional cleaning of the storm drain if there's something to do. And so then, David and I are looking at how that ADOT corridor, how there can be an improved communication during those IDDE or, what these different incidents could cause impact to the storm drain system. And since South Tucson drains to the west as well, that might be another partner to talk to about joining for the three of us for that corridor in the Tucson location. And but if somebody wants a copy of that old IGA, I can send it to them. But like I said, I think there's a new one coming out soon or already out. I don't know if Scott Bennett's got his hand up because he knows some information on that.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I know of no IGA between ADOT and the town of Oro Valley. Anytime we have infrastructure problems with culverts and other drainage on Oracle, it gets reported to Douglas Mosiki with ADOT, the engineering division, and they come and assess it and fix it. So I don't know if Tucson is different because it's bigger and Oracle Road is different in Tucson. I don't know. This is the first I've heard of anything like that. So David, I don't know if you want to treat Oro Valley and you start mapping the drainage infrastructure on Oracle Road here in Oro Valley, because we've done that just so that we can alert ADOT when there is an issue.
Well, but when you're alerting Doug, you're alerting the district and you're telling him about issues. He doesn't contact me. He won't contact me. If there's an illicit discharge that you are aware of.
Oh, well, that kind of responsibility. So
Those
you're
type of
talking
things,
about,
that
you're speaking
nobody's,
about MS4 stuff and not necessarily infrastructure stuff.
yeah, so it's not just infrastructure stuff, but stuff related to our stormwater permits.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's not just, it's about, hi, I'm Dave Mack with ADOT. You've got something down here that you saw that got discharged off into my area because, you know, my guys didn't catch it because they're off doing something else. You know, reach out.
Yeah.
And,
oh yeah, absolutely. Okay.
and that's the whole point of this thing with Elizabeth and I, is that we're trying to create these guidelines so that we can replicate them all over the place. I touch every square inch of the state. So, you know,
No, that makes sense. That clarity.
yeah.
It's so just to be, just to be clear here, in the city of Tucson and Oracle Road, is ADOT responsible for the drainage infrastructure should it fail?
I don't know. I don't know what in the city of Tucson. I don't know what the IGA says.
Elizabeth, do you know?
Yeah, the Oracle Road specifically, I think, said something to the effect that the city maintains the drainage infrastructure for
Physically.
Oracle Road.
Okay.
And then, like I said, there's a new IGA being written. But some of the issues that come up, for instance, when there's a diesel spill, that can really be an issue for certain, sections of roadway if it's an asphalt roadway, because it can really eat up the asphalt. And so the amount of time that it's spent on the pavement makes a huge difference when it comes to deterioration. So you want to know right away what's going on. You got to respond quickly to that kind of issue, just for, with regards to the road. So what I'm trying to get at is that there's different aspects of how illicit discharge impacts different types of locations, besides surface water quality and groundwater issues. There's infrastructure damage and other concepts to think about.
That makes sense. And that's how we handle Oracle Road very similarly in regards to illicit discharges. But repairing infrastructure is a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, and I think, if it were to be noted that maybe there's a failure to a box culvert system that's going underneath one of these ADOT roads, that would be, an involvement by that, by ADOT. It's kind of like, like we had there was a wash crossing underneath the railroad. The railroad's got to, work to fix that because it's directly impacts the railroad, but it has to be reviewed by the city because it's a floodplain thing that has to be carefully reviewed, because if you don't size that new culvert system correctly, you could have serious flooding or other damage issues. So it's kind of a joint effort.
A lot of what you're describing sounds like a joint effort, and I'm wondering, on our resource guide, the broader one, not just the map, but we used to list contact names. And I'm wondering if that would still be useful for David, if you want people to contact you in certain situations, or to know to contact you in addition to the district. Should we bring that back in our contact list?
It changes so frequently. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it does change. And
Yes, we update our resource guide annually.
okay.
A lot of us do stick around a long time, it seems to.
Well, I would gladly put something, and I would just give a general email address.
Okay. Yeah, so like the one that gets forwarded to you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we can look into the adding a context.
For like a illicit discharge, no, we have an environmental incident report procedure and some other spill reporting procedures that we have to follow that have phone numbers on it. That has to be followed as a priority. So you're not talking about emergency conditions, right? You're talking about in general.
Yeah, maybe we'll make sure that's more clarified.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you could add some information that, if there's an emergency spill, contact 911. But I mean, that's what it says on our incident form.
And we have other resources on there, like, Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the one where we also have the county's illegal dumping contact information and a variety of other people to contact when needed, or agencies to contact?
I think we have some that are a bit more specific to construction related items. I think we have some additional ones on our larger resources guide, but I can double check.
Well, we can draft it up and see if we get it right, and then get everyone's feedback about how to list people or contacts for each situation. Like you were saying, there's infrastructure problems versus permits and IDE. And some of this, I don't know if it needs to go on a guide. It's kind of, you guys get a lot out of just being in touch with each other.
Oh, I just jumping in because I double checked, and we do have some contact for reporting violations and spills specifically. So links to City of Tucson Stormwater Management Program, reporting environmental emergencies to ADQ, and then we have city and county phone numbers for reporting and a website from the city for reporting wildcat dumping and illegal dumping. And then we have Don't Trash Arizona on there. And of course that can be expanded.
I'll be sending you by email the phone number and also a link for filing illicit discharge complaints for Pima County.
Thank you. Melanie,
Yeah.
can we, or Crystal, can we share the guide again just so people can see if something's missing for their jurisdiction?
Here,
Or we
let me pull that up.
Okay.
We have a similar report a spill and phone number. We'll get to you.
Okay. Thanks. Elizabeth?
Okay. I think this was
Okay. So we also have just sent out in the Tucson water bill, or it's coming in the next couple weeks. We have another list that is going out. This is more for flood related pre-monsoon contacts, drainage complaints, sandbag program, sandbag location, drainage concerns during the weekend or after 5 p.m. kind of thing. And it's a joint flyer that goes out from Pima County and city. So the county's drainage complaints phone number, illegal dumping, etc., is also on this same flyer.
Can you send us that flyer?
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I want to let you know that's a really good resource. I've had some people calling in anticipation of protecting their house as a storm was on its way, and being able to get access to those sandbags was very important. So thanks for providing that service.
Yeah, it's our streets department. It's a special program called Operation Splash.
Yeah.
And it's a joint effort. It also, they set up the road closures at the dip crossings right before a big storm. And yeah, it's a good project. Keep in mind that sandbags are a temporary solution, and there are some permanent retrofits that can be done to help with other flooding issues.
Yeah.
Great. This will be good.
I wanted to go back and do a little bit more discussion of the MS4 map, and just talk through a little bit with ADOT about what we can do to move forward. Can I share my screen with you?
Crystal, is that feasible?
I will try and see.
Yeah, I think it
Yes,
should be able
sorry.
to.
You should be able to share.
You see the green button? For me, it's at the bottom.
I'm clicking on screen 1. Is that coming through? How about this? Is that showing yet? No, this one.
Not
I don't
yet.
see it yet. Yeah.
Oh, I have to select it and then share. How about now?
Not yet. Oh,
There
yes.
it goes.
Whoops, that's not what I wanted to show. Well, these are all my emails, and let's see here.
I'm seeing Pima maps.
Oh, you are seeing Pima maps?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what I wanted to show is this is the intersection of River Road and Oracle. And if I move my mouse over here, I can click in a property and I will get information about it. However, if I click in this roadway, I don't have any information specific to the road, just for the Aziptes area. So, and I know in our GIS system that flood control does not have an ownership with the drainages either. So I think there's going to be some significant work here to be able to add in a road. So this shows the roadway plus the right of way. And is that what you are responsible for, David?
Yeah, so, look at the actual says where it says North Oracle Road on there, from right-of-way fence to right-of-way fence. That's all my responsibility. So that's all the phase one.
Okay.
But the way these GIS maps work, I'm not 100% on this, but since that whole area connected with River Road, and you start seeing it connected with the other areas, that's all just right-of-way property. And it's just in these GIS layers, it would get very confusing very quick if it was all labeled out as who owns what piece of right-of-way. I could see that getting very complicated very quickly. So, I mean, I don't know what the solution is.
So this is a layer that shows the road maintenance and what's maintained by Pima County, and then the different color codes identify if it's maintained by somebody else. So blue is it's not maintained by Pima County. And so it's not going into the detail where it's showing who's maintaining the road for everybody.
Yeah.
Plus, the other thing is that the point that you're making earlier was we had this north-south road where ADOT is taking care of it. And then as we come down here to where it crosses the Santa Cruz River, somebody else is maintaining the river there. That's what that red means.
Someone's maintaining the river or maintaining the bridge? What does that?
Is that the right of way by the road?
This is
This
is others' responsibility for maintaining this. So this is what so there's an IGA and it belongs to somebody else besides Pima County or What I'm saying is what we're talking about doing is going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, it would be very difficult.
And so it might be that we want to start with a road, like maybe I-10 or Oracle, and just do one and see what it takes to get that set up. Especially given, because what this map also shows is that, Pima County has our drainage system in here, and this is the turquoise is Pima County, unincorporated Pima County, and then it goes into yellow, which is City of Tucson. And I am sure that Elizabeth's map has got a whole bunch of drainages or storm drains mapped there. And so
yeah, we have a lot of storm drain nomenclature. It's got catch basins and culverts listed.
Yeah. We have catch basins, culverts, inlets, and then there's the pipelines and also storm drain manholes.
Not right here though, right?
So this is a that storm drain line, storm drain parcel.
Do you have the city's storm drain info there?
We do not. So there's not one place you can go to where you can see how things connect up, even though I'm sure they do somehow.
And this layer, if you looked on the left under the legend, what grouping is this under if people were to look for it?
So there's a couple of places to be looking. Actually, this layer here, which is RFC property rights internal, that's an internal file, and that's what is showing this layer that shows who's maintaining the washes. The streets, I don't know if that's a public one either. Streets, and then there's Pima County road maintenance status. And then there's the MS4 area. So there's those 3 layers that would need to be updated or combined with, and this is not a trivial exercise. Because I think, Elizabeth, you've probably got the largest set of data for all these, the stormwater infrastructure, simply because you guys have the largest area.
If you guys want, I could share you this location. You can kind of get a sense of the different map information available. This is,
Are you gonna share your screen?
yeah, when I press share, oh, there it goes. Let's see, it'd be this one, I think. Do you see the map?
Yes.
Okay. It kind of is a little bit blurry because I kept the watershed data on. So I can turn that off, but we do have some flood control information as well. We may turn that on. You can see something's turned color. You can see that the Rito turns a salmon color that shows county ownership.
Yeah.
Did you see how that changed color? And then let me just turn off your administrative boundaries and also the watersheds for now. But you can see, and I've also toned down the aerial because I was trying to see if it could. So you can see the aerials, you can adjust that. And then as we get rid of the aerial photos, you can see the system. There's a storm drain catch basins, the red squares, and then they drain down into this system here, and that connects into this wash, and this drains down into the Rito. So, and then likewise over on River Road, this system drains to the west and enters Pima Wash, which is this one right here. Isn't that right, Marie? This one's Pima Wash? Yeah. And that one's a designated wash ordinance water course. It's a riparian floodplain. So you can get lots of information. It also gives you the maintenance for certain sections, who owns what. And there's, this one is a county owned parcel here, and the flood zone data. So yeah, there's some information. We also have graded inlets. There's a green little identifying marker here, and when you zoom in, you can kind of see it in the aerial that it's oops, it's having a hard time now. You can see that it's right there. So you know, it's not perfect, but it gives you an idea. Okay, it's somewhere over here. There's a graded inlet.
Yeah.
So, but that's what we've got. And you can, when you go to Map Tucson, you just type in, I want to open city flood data on the left. And you can see, it always zooms to this one location, and you can do previous extents if you wanted, but it just shows various pieces of information. It's for floodplain management per se, more than, you know, stormwater exactly, but it does provide storm drain information. All that's turned on. A lot of the data may not be complete. You know, we don't have everything, all the as-builts updated, but you can see that there are, you know, catch basin systems identified in some of these street alignments, and manholes, catch basins, graded inlets, bridges, whatnot.
So what I'm thinking is, since we're running low on time, it's really great to see Marie and Elizabeth's maps. And it seems like it's worth carrying on this discussion. And maybe for the meantime, if you can send us links that you think that construction industry or inspectors could use on our resource guide related to what you're talking about, we'll add those. And if you have brochures that you've developed, even within the last 5 years, we may not have seen them ourselves. So we can steal links from those, but be thinking about not just the private sector, but what your staff at your cities use. And I just have like a follow-up question about the maps. Does anyone find, maybe this is a good question for Howard as well, does anyone find the static map that PAG produces useful? It's a PDF format, so you can zoom in and get more like detail as you go in, rather than just a regular image. But do you think that's something we should still do annually using the data that Marie collects? Or is it not as necessary? That's just like a static printout map.
This is Howard Myers. When designing a SWEP, we find those helpful with regards to vicinity maps, that's for sure. So anything that doesn't cost too much time and too much effort, construction industry would enjoy it.
Awesome. Okay, Marie, does that sound good? That we'll utilize your data and continue our role of updating like a static map you can use in presentations or printouts.
Sure, yeah. We really need the GIS because we need to zoom in on properties and but I think for the construction industry, if they're usually not working along the boundaries the way we are, so yeah.
Okay. And do you want us to help arrange another conversation about sharing the GIS data, or Marie, do you want to lead that separately?
Well, there's two things to do right now. One is to make sure that the MS4 map is updated. That's the top priority. The next one is how to integrate the MS4's GIS information for the infrastructure. And that is probably going to take a lot more conversations. And I think it would probably be helpful if we do have another meeting on this, that we are able to invite our GIS guys to participate.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And if it comes to needing a place to host all the different data sets in one place, PAG can always help with that with an interactive map that links to multiple sources.
I wanted to jump in there. There's an opportunity on the map Tucson where we can set up a layer system, a set of layers that are identified as being helpful for, like, say, utility permitting. We can turn on certain layers, and then all they have to do is click on that data set, and then that information comes up, and that can be used to help them determine, permitting requirements.
Oh, I like, is that like how you clicked on city floodplain or flood data, and then it showed a whole grouping of relevant data?
Yeah, so that's for more like floodplain use permitting. We could do one for, SWIP or stormwater related questions.
That would be good. Okay, so we'll start the conversation with those opportunities next time. And I'll bring in our GIS guy as well to help say what features we can offer. And then on a final note on the resource guide, this is just left over, but since the last time we did the update to the post-construction resources, the EPA has developed more green infrastructure resources in those post-construction BMP terms. So that is on the guide as well. And we'll continue the conversation more next time. We'll send out a doodle and get in touch with some of you about building that agenda. Scott or Elizabeth, I don't know who had their hand up first.
It was Elizabeth.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I meant to put it down.
Oh, thanks.
So I guess it's me then. I think this might only apply to Lonnie and Paula in this group. Are you guys getting going with the sampling and analysis plan for the new permit?
This is Lonnie. I'll speak up and talk real briefly to that.
Actually, that is good timing because our next agenda item is the permit updates.
Okay. I didn't know if we were wrapping up the meeting or not.
Oh, no, that was just agenda item 4.
Oh, okay.
And Paula, would you mind reading out our description, and we can also expand the conversation to a roundtable of everybody's permit updates.
Unfortunately, I can't because I don't have the agenda. I
Oh,
only have
sure.
what's on the screen
Oh, sure.
since my computer's down. But do we want to wait for Scott, or not Scott, I'm sorry, Lonnie, until after we read this?
We can.
That's fine. I just would.
Okay.
I'd like to discuss it at some point because we're not getting a whole lot of help from the state.
All right. Well, then let's read the description.
Yeah, we still have 40 minutes available for other topics if I'm looking at the time right. I'll go ahead and read it up. So Pima County and City of Tucson have offered to share how they're addressing their MS4 permit requirements to retrofit stormwater infrastructure with nature-based solutions and to hold stormwater workshops as well. But we also wanted to offer a roundtable to jurisdictional staff to discuss additional permit updates. I'll leave it up to you all what you want to start with. Marie and Elizabeth, would you mind if we start with the phase 2s?
Go ahead, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks for that organizational interruption. Go ahead, Scott and Lonnie.
I'll go ahead and speak up. I don't know if the team down there is aware that 3 of the entities up this way, namely Buckeye, Queen Creek, and Pinal County, filed a formal objection to the permit. And so we have not actually engaged in that permit yet because we've had an ongoing negotiation process with ADEQ and the Attorney General's office, which is coming to a close now. And the final changes and agreed upon negotiated points are being, the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And I think we're still trying to figure out how and when and what ADEQ is going to do about formally putting this out for review. But we had concerns with about 5 different sections of the permit. 6.1 educational outreach, 6.3 IDDE, 6.4 construction activities, 7.2 stormwater characterization, and 8.2 record keeping. And through this quite a long process, as you know, since it was issued in September, and we still don't have the new permit, those three entities yet. It's just been a kind of a give and take back and forth, but I think we finally come to a consensus of things that we can agree with and things that they will agree with as well.
Lonnie, this is Paula. I did see a notice from ADQ that I think Rosie sent it out, maybe, that this was going on. So unfortunately, I didn't have a chance yet to get into any of the specifics on it, but I know that they did at least put that out, that there was going to be some kind of adjustment to the permit based on the three entities that you mentioned and the, I guess, lawsuit. So I have seen information about it.
Very good. If you want, I can touch on those things real quick. If not, we can just wait and you can see them formally in writing.
Well, I think if you're allowed to speak up, it's probably a good forum to talk about it, if that's okay with everyone else.
I don't know that
Yes.
I don't know that I can send anything in writing, but I can talk through some of the things real quick. In 6.1, subsection 3, it talks about messages to specific audiences and how those will be measured. We managed to convince them that the last part of that section would be deleted, which is basically says any methods used to evaluate the effectiveness of the program shall be tied to the defined goals of the program and the overall objective of changes in behavior and knowledge. None of us could figure out even what we're trying to do there, and so they finally agreed to take that out of the permit. 6.3, illicit discharge. In subsection 7, visual monitoring, we managed to convince them to include language that the ratio of the dry weather and wet weather screenings conducted each year will be determined by the permittee. So you will have that ability to do that. And then, of course, they tried to slip that thing back in again, that we were going to be their police force about the ZIPTs non-filers. And we managed to get some changes put in there so that it reads like this now. The permittee shall implement a program to identify illicit discharges to the MS4 identified in accordance with the IDDE program established in section 6.3. The permittee will not report suspended non-filers, shall report suspected non-filers to ADEQ within 30 days. The report provided ADEQ shall include at minimum a facility name and location of the suspected non-filer. Report shall be submitted to ADEQ at ZIPTs adeq.gov. More than one filer is identified within a 30-day period. The notifications will be combined into a single report. So at least they're not asking us to go in on, and be their police forces. If we stumble into something when we are doing an investigation, then we're asked to report it. And then in 6.4, I'm sorry, 6.4. Let's see. I'm just 6.4 construction activity. There was concerns about, they had a lot of verbiage in here with sites with a certain size will be inspected a minimum of every 2 weeks, certain size once per month. And so we had a lot of give and take on that. And it came up reading something to the effect that sites 1 acre or larger that are within 1/4 mile of an impaired or non-attaining protected air surface water that is impaired for turbidity or suspended sediment concentration shall be inspected a minimum of once per week and within 24 hours of the occurrence of each storm event of 1/2 inch or greater in a 24-hour period. Site inspection frequency for sites not subject to section, that particular section, may follow section A or B below or any combination thereof. Site shall be inspected within 1 month of the start of construction. This inspection will count towards quarterly inspections. Sites shall be inspected quarterly, and sites shall be inspected upon completion of construction and or prior to approval or occupancy. This inspection shall also count towards quarterly inspections. And a site meeting, that there's several requirements, and if the site meets the below requirements, they can reduce inspection frequency to once every 6 months. And then the permittee just has to document which sites those are. So there's a list of various things there. And then the last part is compliance with this permit term shall be determined by achieving at least 80% of scheduled inspections annually. And then going on to 7.2. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling here. So this is the stormwater characterization monitoring, which we had a lot of concerns on. Just some verbiage was changed. One part of that is that the way that it was originally written was one time within the next 2 years. That's been increased to 3.5 years. And then storm event records, which used to read the permittee shall record qualifying storm events and then basically indicate why you did not sample them. And that was crazy because you could, if you have all this time to do it and you're not set up to do it within your first year or whatever, you're not getting your labs all set up. Every time there was a half inch or every time there was a qualifying storm event that produced runoff, you'd have to say why you didn't sample it and turn that in. But we thought that was onerous. And so now it now reads the sampled qualifying storm event is in parentheses 0.1 inch or more of rainfall and resulting in discharge at the outfall. The permittee shall include the sampled qualifying storm event data in the DMR, including the following information: date of the qualifying storm event, and B, the amount of rainfall in inches. So that's it. You don't have to justify why you didn't do it now. We argued back and forth whether we should even be doing characterization, but we decided to give that one to ADQ. And we actually seriously considered pushing this to going to trial over this whole thing, but decided we'd be nice.
Hey, Lonnie.
Uh-huh.
This characterization monitoring is, I mean, I've seen them say it in some of their presentations, but they never specifically say it in the permit that it's a one-time only event.
Right, during the first term of the permit, right.
So that's something we all need to be aware of. We're not having to do this every time it rains. We have to do this once.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if they would put that in the actual permit rather than on one of their PowerPoints.
This is the way it reads now, or if it all comes out like this, says the permittee shall sample stormwater discharges from the MS floor as described in Appendix B one time within the first 3.5 years of the effective date of the permit.
That's okay. So that will be inserted into the new permit.
Yes, yep, that's
Good.
what we negotiated in there.
Good.
Is that for the first flush?
They want us to get first flush if we can.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the first flush really tells the story, and doing this repeatedly throughout the year, I'm not sure it's the best way to do this. I think the first flush once per season for Tucson seems reasonable. I don't know how Tucson can get that. Thanks for discussing this with us.
Yeah, and then the last one here, let's see, is in 8.2 record keeping. And there are other little spots, grammatical things and whatnot throughout here, but I'm just trying to hit the high points here. The way it was written is the permittee will keep all records required by this permit for a period of 3 years from the date permit coverage ends. So you could literally be keeping records for 8 years from if you did year one of the 5-year permits plus 3 years after. And we said, that's getting a little bit crazy. And so that has now been changed to the permittee shall keep all records required by this permit for a period of 3 years from the date the record is created. So
I'm not sure you're going to get that one because the
We
data,
got it.
really? Because the data in these reports could be considered engineering, and the state law for retention of engineering documents is permanent.
Well,
Well,
bear in mind that there's a state requirement for record keeping, and then there's per the permit. So this is just for permit record keeping.
yes, that's exactly right. And so those were the high points right there. So hopefully that given you food for thought.
Well, I think that's very informational and sounds like you guys put a lot of thought into, what was being said in the permit. So,
The goal was to try to make it workable, because some of that stuff, I mean, they couldn't even explain why it was written the way it was written. And we couldn't understand it. So that's why we tried to make it so that it was at least usable and people weren't going to get in trouble by multiple interpretations of the same language.
yeah, I think when they had stakeholder meetings before in previous iterations of the permit, it was nice because we could iron these things out before the permit was issued, and it got more discussion going beforehand so that we didn't have to go back later and go through legal avenues. So I wish that they would bring that back a little bit more.
And they do what everyone else has been doing for the last 2 years, blame a lot of this confusion on COVID. So we'll just go with that explanation.
So does anyone else have any questions or anything for Lonnie?
One thing I'd like to say is that we all have 30 days to comment on this per Rosie's email. But I like the changes.
And what was the date of that email?
Came in last week
Okay, all right.
or earlier this week, maybe.
Is
But
this
very,
for the,
very recently.
is this for the general permit for
Phase
phase
2
2?
MS4.
Mhm. Yeah, the general.
This is very interesting because we just got our modified phase 1 permit this morning. And the requirement for the monitoring and records is 3 years from the date this permit coverage expires or the permit authorization is terminated, which is different from what it was before, which identified 3 years from the date the data was collected. So they are definitely not being consistent between the phase 1s and phase 2s.
It certainly seems that they're not.
And from my understanding, Lonnie,
Frustrating.
those things that you were negotiating, was that to impact all phase 2 permits, or is it just for Pinal?
I think with the revisions, when they make the revisions, it won't be just applicable to us. It will apply to everyone. That's why that review period is happening right now. What it did for us is it froze our permit status. So we're still operating under the previous general permit because of this negotiation and objection process.
Okay. Have others, well, Paula, do you have comments that you needed support on too, or wanted to share?
No, not really. I do appreciate, like I said, the jurisdictions taking that time to really go through and look at how it's going to impact them, because ultimately with this general permit, we're kind of all the small MS4s are in the same boat. And so by getting 3.5 years to do the analytical or the monitoring instead of 2 years. You know, it helps all of us because we're having issues trying to find labs, of course, come up with the funding for it, all of that stuff. So I actually was a little surprised because I didn't know that that those 3 jurisdictions had filed something. So so I only found out about it when we got the email from Rosie. So I guess I would have liked to maybe hear about it a little bit earlier, and maybe I mean, it is quite possible that it did go out through Buckeye. They might have sent something out and I just did not see it. But no, I think it shows really good effort on their part.
So I agree with you 100% about asking for more time, and we have been caught unawares, like hurry up and go. You have 30 days to review and comment on this. No, so we jumped through massive hoops, got everything done, and it's been 8 months since we went through the public notice period before we actually got our modified permit. So there's a, and we have asked them, let us know, give us the opportunity to go through an informal discussion with you so that we can clean up a lot of the problems. And they have been very reluctant to do that. And when they do, it's like 2 weeks to be able to do something like that. But if they want to go through creating lawsuits, thank you, Lonnie. And the fellow Robert, I think you're working with up in Buckeye.
Robert Vandenecker.
Yeah, to let them know, because most of the good faith negotiation that we have been doing in the development of our permit was not reciprocated, and that's been an issue.
So those meetings, like the stakeholder meetings, weren't occurring, and there wasn't as much as discussion available unless you're in the case of the lawsuits that allowed the negotiation.
Well, and it never came to the formal lawsuit. We filed an objection.
Oh,
And-
okay, formal
and then-
objection.
And then we were able to enter into negotiations with the Attorney General's office participating as well. So I think that the 3 of us were serious enough that if they didn't start negotiation in good faith, that we would have gone to the lawsuit process.
I just think, I'm speaking personally here, that there is a difference in the organization at ADQ now with water quality. It's different. It has a different feel than in permits past, as far as getting input ahead of time. I do have to say though that one thing that I like is the trainings and stuff like that after it comes out. But I think that if we had done more stuff before the permit came out, we might not have to have as much training and meetings to discuss and clarify things after the permit comes out.
We weren't able to get our ADQ contact to attend, but we could aim to do that next time to get some of these messages spread or heard, if that would be helpful. And if it's helpful for us to meet more often, let us know too, because like you said, Paula, you didn't know about some of these prior, and I'm not sure how to help with that other than just offering these get-togethers.
I think it's important, Meade, that we have the opportunity to have the conversation here And if you're going to invite ADQ, let us know.
Yeah.
And for sure, that's the conversations we've had with ADQ. They have been quite aware that they've not been providing the service that they need to the MS4. So I'm surprised to hear that the ADQ representative did not attend.
We have had similar challenges with our other ADQ related programs.
I
them
was
showing up at their own
talking,
meetings even.
I was just talking to Rosie before this meeting, and she said she was going to try to attend, and she wanted to discontinue talking to him on the phone so she could join in. So I was surprised she's not here because she was the one who said she was going to attend this meeting.
David?
I don't know
Just-
what happened.
Just from my read of what's happening, a lot of what you're experiencing, what we're experiencing is from personnel changes at ADEQ and from different people being brought in. And I think that the one bright spot in all of this who is trying to maintain some semblance of order is Rosie, but she's even being frustrated in her attempts to do it by those that she's working with.
Yeah, I would concur.
I would as
agree.
well.
I agree.
Yep.
And David, you had your hand up?
Who's the rep? Is it Roxanne?
Yeah, do you all find Roxanne to be helpful? Roxanne Lindsley?
Oh yeah, I talk to her all the time.
That's interesting because I never, and I mean, I've known Roxanne for years and never really thought about going through her.
Oh yeah, go through Roxanne. Trust me. If she can't, she's she's sort of an ombudsman. It's one of her side roles.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to anything ADEQ related, I call her up and I go, hey, Roxanne, can you help me out? And she goes, yeah, all right, this or this. And then at the same time, we're friends, so we BS all the time. So
That's
yeah, so there's
yeah.
interesting conversation. But we talk about government talk between state agencies, so it's not like, the difference is all this wonderful stuff that we have to go through. So yeah, so I mean, but she's really good. But I mean, hell, I've been trying to contact her all day. She must be really busy because I mean she hasn't responded back to me, but she's usually pretty attentive and she is our local representative. And if there's any problems, I mean, she can go right up to the boss down here and just go, hey, and believe me, they'll make a stink.
Also, the other lady that helps with the My DEQ, if you have questions, she's very helpful too. I forgot her name.
I want to note that Rosie's been super helpful to us, and I know that she's understood everything that we've asked for and has been trying to be responsive. And so I think she's the person to be coordinating with. Roxanne is fantastic to work with as well. But because she's the ombudsman for a lot of different topics, her goal is to find the information for me. And I think the level of detail that people would be asking here would be more than what she could find. She'd have to say, okay, I've got your questions. I'll go find it and get back to you.
Yeah, she could probably help spread the messages where they need to go. I find her to be very communicative and always well connected. Well, we have about 11 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure the phase ones have a chance too to talk about any additional concerns. You've been mentioning audits, Elizabeth, and seminars as well. I believe Mary Ann Elizabeth. So please feel free to take some of the remaining time.
Marie, go ahead.
Okay. This new permit has more restrictions in it. or I should say more requirements. And one of the requirements that we're focusing on right now is identifying 3 areas to add retrofits. We're aiming for putting in low impact development and green infrastructure. And the methodology that we're using is we've gone through a process to evaluate the residential, commercial, and industrial characterization monitoring that we've done for the last 21 years or so, whatever it is, and came up with a priority that the industrial has the most impact. Next up, and industrial is related to lead, and E. coli and copper. And the residential is the second most impactful, which is related to the high E. coli concentrations, and then commercial has the best quality of them all. Our GIS analysis that we're embarking on is going to be looking then at what percentage of the properties in a particular watershed are residential, commercial, and industrial, and given an appropriate rating so that we can focus on those watersheds that have the greater potential for water quality issues. And I say potential because some areas we do have issues and other areas we don't. Both the rural and high density residential areas have been showing improvements in E. coli. It's the medium density residential that has been showing higher E. coli concentrations. And we're looking at, in the rural, people can't let their animals out because it's dangerous to do that. In the high density urban, there's not enough space for people not to be cleaning up after their pets when they take them for walks. But in the medium density residential, everybody has animals in their backyards and walks, and it may or may not be cleaned up. So we'll go through the process to identify the 3 areas, and then work with, have a chat with ADQ about what kind of, what their expectations are. One of our questions was, are you looking for an area identified like a watershed that's like 4 or 5 square miles? Or are you looking for something that's at the parcel level? And they said, no, we think something in between, which is also very an amorphous answer that makes it difficult to meet their expectations. So that's one thing. And then the GIS map was the other thing. And I appreciate the earlier conversations for that. Okay, Elizabeth, take it away.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for your update. Yeah, like Marie said, the phase 1s have a requirement now to look at 3 locations that will be assessed for what they use the term retrofitting. And this assessment needs to be done in a 3 or 4 year period. I forget which, Marie, if you wanted to jump in. And the first year, we're going to propose our locations and then see what we can do to improve stormwater quality. It's obvious for our permit that, E. coli has been slightly increasing issue over the years. In about 2015, we saw an acceleration in homeless population in the city. And so out of our 3 projects, we actually are going to try to look at, E. coli and impact for homeless, and ways or thoughts on how to fix this, because it's a dramatic issue with homeless population in our washes. Unfortunately, the homeless are congregating in the washes. Those that are congregating in the washes and doing encampments are more than likely doing drugs. And so, you know, that makes it even worse because of the type of encampment. We're finding that it might be that the meth users are the ones that are bringing more stuff into the wash and more trash and collecting more things. And anyway, we're looking at different aspects of it, and there may be certain types of analytes we're going to look at specifically for that. We're actually considering maybe thinking about proposing some additional testing for certain types of pollutants, including things like lindane and or permethrin. But the location that we're going to probably concentrate on are the areas where we've had like the worst activity, and so it ends up being kind of along the ADOT corridor, but not ADOT, but it's more ADOT and the Santa Cruz River are kind of nearby each other. It's near the Santa Cruz, so it'd be those major outfall locations. So that's what we're kind of looking at this time. The second project is we're looking at an area where we have certain types of commercial/residential structures that are have discharge issues, and that those commercial residential areas are impacting downstream residential property owners, get lots of complaints. And so for instance, we've had reports where a student housing building had students are coming up to the roof and walking their dogs and allowing them to do their business instead of, we understand there's procedures that are given out to these students that say, hey, you're supposed to walk across the street and have them do their business over here, and you either pick it up or somebody comes and picks it up. I don't know, but they already have something in place. But when they, have them do their business on the roof, you're going to have that, problem with a lot of dog poop coming down the storm drain system. And in the city of Tucson, our system is mostly surface flow. We have, some storm drains here and there, but there's the majority is surface flow. And so we don't have this regulation that says 100% of the 100-year storm is kept on site. We can't do that. Our soils are too hard. And so we also want to share the water. So our entire city of Tucson is more of a detention system. And so the water is shared and it goes downstream into washes and then major washes and then to the, regional water courses as kind of a general oversight. And so it's a serious issue when we have any type of discharge in the city area. So we have a list already started for this particular project, and the analytes we're kind of maybe concentrating on for that will be E. coli, chlorine, and maybe hydrocarbons. And then the third project, like David had mentioned, the city of Tucson and ADOT are going to work on that ADOT corridor. There's 2 locations we're going to maybe concentrate on, and then we're going to we haven't decided on our parameters, but we're thinking maybe E. coli, hydrocarbons, RCRA 8. We haven't decided yet. But this will be hopefully a project that will provide a practical benefit, because what we're trying to do is look at and assess how we have procedures in place and how the communication is between the jurisdictions when there's an IDDE, and how maybe there's some improvement to be made. And we think that this project would be a benefit to both jurisdictions. We're also maybe thinking about having South Tucson join us because they're kind of nearby. So those are our 3 projects. And if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thank you. I wanted to know, are you interpreting it retrofit similarly, where green infrastructure might be one of the solutions proposed? And I imagine that when you say there's like communications as a solution, that will become really a big thing with handling solutions for the unsheltered populations.
Yeah. So for green infrastructure, the type of analytes that we're talking about have to be dealt with on a different level. We don't just say, okay, go ahead and allow certain types of chemicals and chlorine just to come on through, and we'll just set up some GI downstream and have it slowly be addressed. We actually have to stop the IDDE, and we can't allow it to leave those sites. So, but there's other types of approaches for different types of issues, like if there was a sedimentation issue, that's a challenge in the city, because there's a certain level sediment transport that occurs, and so there's a balance there.
Clear water
And then
either.
So we're trying to look at this as trying to look at where we can stop the biggest pollutant issues. We have a high density of potable water wells in the city of Tucson, and we have private and public. And that, with that, we have to really take a very serious approach with keeping our surface water clean. But certainly it is important to have, for instance, for what's it called? Gas stations. Those are a good example of where retrofitting could be looked at with, the green approach. For instance, when you have runoff from the fueling area, if it can go through the landscape buffer before it enters the storm drain system, that can be a good idea for a retrofit project. And sometimes you'll have an on-site basin at a gas station that might not have a secondary sediment trap or first flush basin in conjunction with the basin for detention retention. So it could be that we, look at that system or at other types of retrofits, because gas stations can be a serious problem. And in this case, gas stations are a good example of where you can add a little additional, like a landscaping feature that provides a secondary filtration before entering the storm drain system. So that would be another example. And maybe do that instead of one of our other ones, because the gas stations, are a problem for us. So,
Well,
and B, did you say you had another part of that question, or?
yeah, I had heard that Aaron Jordan at ADQ was working on some sort of E. coli project from the stormwater sources that show up down in Marana. I believe she was talking about, where the waters are considered impaired below the CDO outfall.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to track down what her project is, and I wondered if anyone's involved, because we've been trying to track down whether anyone's speciating the E. coli to determine if most of it's coming from dogs or humans. That would probably be the homeless population, since it's in stormwater. Is that part of any of your projects, or any of you working with Aaron?
No,
So
but
Pima County wants to do the speciation study, and we have been working on getting the sample analysis plan, the stormwater management plan, and our legal authority ironed out before we embark on that next thing. But that is definitely an important consideration, and I'm glad you're bringing it up here, because I think it would be helpful to all of the MS4s to get a characterization for our area.
Yeah, it could really help to know whether to increase services for people experiencing homelessness versus scoop the poop campaigns and some of the other preventative measures. Maybe we'll find out it's both anyway.
One of the other things too, because of this increase in homelessness in this last couple of years, we've been looking at this as like that's a different kind of a management issue. It's like it's part of the use of the land within the MS4, but what control do we have over that? It's very difficult, and I know that our flood control district does a lot to go in and clean up after these homeless camps, and it can be disgusting, and it can also be dangerous because of the things that are left behind. And so it's not a trivial process to go in and pull out all that stuff.
Yeah, imagine the health department has to be a collaborator.
yeah, unfortunately, we can imagine that there may be, veterans down there, people that just all of a sudden accidentally took fentanyl and now they're hooked, or heroin, or meth, or whatever. And it is sad. It's really a sad situation, but it's also sad to be imagine asking your coworker to go down in that wash and pick up a 5-gallon bucket of excrement and remove it and take care of it. One of our administrators actually went over and got rid of some homeless deposit. This homeless person just did it right in front of us when we were doing a storm drain inspection. And I was telling my boss, I said, it's hard for me to tell the guys to go clean that up. And he goes, where is it? And he went out and got it. But it's all the time though. And it's so much. And it's a huge issue where we have our soil type right at the bottom of those major water courses, with that infiltration rate being high and the concern for contamination to our potable wells. It's a serious problem. I think it needs to be prioritized by stormwater because it's a surface water issue. And there's code. The code says you don't obstruct flow, you don't pollute, we got tons of code that says you don't do any of these things. And so it is a serious problem. And from the regulatory standpoint, I've got the code that says it's not supposed to happen. So you know, I can tell you what my personal opinion is, but that's not what this meeting's about. So I'm going to tell you that as far as our project is concerned, we're looking at E. coli and some other parameters, and hopefully we'll come up some ways to reduce this. It's, water quality is important, especially right now the city of Tucson is in our drought planning stage tier 1. So for drought preparedness, we've already at a tier 1. I think actually we might be at tier 2, and we haven't been announcing it yet.
No, you're at tier 1.
Yeah, so for tier 1, we're looking at auditing, different restrictions on water use. Water conservation is a serious issue. And so along the same lines, if we're not taking the effort to keep water clean, that's subtracting from that valuable water that we need to drink. So
Yeah.
Anyway,
We need to team up with.
it is a serious problem, and we'd like to get it addressed. Foremost, ultimately, it's a flood danger. It's a flood hazard to have people down there. When you're high, you're gonna fall asleep and then you're gonna drown. And the TPD just reported 2 bodies floating down the river in I think it was last monsoon. They had already overdosed in the storm drain and then were flushed out during the storm event. That's not right. We shouldn't have a single death. And so, and unfortunately that's where they like to go. The ones that are, having problems with addiction is that they go into the washes. But anyway, so there you go.
Well, let us know. I know we have to wrap up, but let us know if we can bring this forward, bring other people into the conversation, hold a meeting about it, or any other things at a future meeting.
Well, we had our stormwater workshop Wednesday, really quickly on the tail end of our floodplain management plan meeting for the city of Tucson on Wednesday. And we did get to touch on the human, the human side of of this issue with the the homeless in the washes, and we just didn't have the time to go over so much information and talk about it more. And we are thinking we need maybe another meeting on this. And if you wanted to, maybe we can organize something to get another meeting on it, specifically on that topic. I think it's important for awareness. I think it's a very serious issue. It's emotional issue, and so it's a tricky one to talk about. But if we can just stay on the topic of what our regulations are, what the facts are, what we're seeing out there, and ask questions and get on that level, I think people start to maybe understand it better, and then maybe some people can start looking at different solutions. And I've got some ideas, but I don't want to share them right now. So, but I think that would be great if we could do it maybe through PAG Stormwater, have a specific one just on homeless. Or if you have got other thoughts on how to have that venue.
I think I can dig into some, because we had some conversations when we were putting together a green infrastructure plan for the region, and homelessness was like the other end of the report, like that the green infrastructure wouldn't address. So I remember some health department contacts being helpful. So I'll have to dig up my notes and see if I can help at all. And Howard,
I
sorry.
did want to note too that Pima County is having their annual stormwater workshop on May 25th from 2 to 3:30. And I will be inviting y'all. And if you would like to come, that would be great. We'll just more sharing about how our program works. So it'd be focusing on looking at our outreach program, construction, inspections, industrial, and how we're using green infrastructure.
Thanks, Marie. I would like to attend, and I apologize for not inviting you to our stormwater workshop Wednesday. I was scrambling. I'm sorry.
No
I'll
worries.
have to go over it with you separately.
No worries, I understand.
I'm looking forward to hearing your workshop and how it goes. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Marie. Are you, is the audience public sector and private and all topics stormwater?
Yes, this is for everybody who might be impacted.
So industry, construction.
Industry, construction.
Okay.
I'll be inviting some managers from Aho as well as Summer Haven. Maybe they're not aware that if there's an illicit discharge that they can contact us and we can help them get it cleaned up.
Oh, good. And toward the end of our resource guide that was on our first agenda item, some of those links might be helpful. We also have old PowerPoints that you're welcome to, steal images from that I'll try to send you.
Thanks.
Sure. And Howard, let us know too, maybe by email or if there's any other topics we can help with that we didn't cover today that are helpful toward the private sector.
Well, Mead, this is Howard. As a matter of fact, I would invite any of the representatives, the MS4s or PAG, relative to this new MS4 permit, or I should say any new issues and or impacts that could have serious impacts on the construction industry. I'm sure the Southern Arizona Home Builder Association would welcome a presentation by any and all willing to provide that information. Sean Cody or John Ward would be the contact guys.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Is that John Ward, engineer? John Ward?
John Ward, engineer, yes.
Okay.
Sean Cody is the employee of SABA, that's governmental affairs. John Ward heads up the technical committee, subcommittee, of which these kinds of issues are brought up all the time.
Yeah, that would be great. Invite them to your stormwater meetings and likewise, see if you have something to present with them. Howard, would it help if we forwarded our resource guide to Sean as well and see if he can distribute it?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Hey, Mead, can you hold on until you get your updates from everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we'll like put a deadline on it, and then we always we're always updating it. So we'll continue to add any links that come in late.
Okay.
Super, thanks. Well, thank you everyone. I always appreciate this group, the way you are willing to share and learn a lot from each other. Thanks again for coming together, and I believe Melanie will be figuring out when our next meeting can happen, so we look forward to hearing back from you.
Thank you, Mead, for having the meeting.
Everyone. A lot of good
Yeah.
information.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Paula.
organizing it.
Great job, Melanie.